over the years, like the core teachers that have been there are very caring, very interested in the child's success, and very interested in, as I said, enriching whatever that kid's, interests or talents are.
I'm Glenn Herbert, and I'm an editor with Our Kids. We're speaking with insiders from Canada's leading private schools to gain insights into their programs, culture, traditions, and leadership. This includes insights from parents, alumni, and administrators. This is the Our Kids Insider Perspective.
Okay, we've been with the school for over 18 years. Um, when my youngest son was 2 years, sorry, my oldest son was 2 years old, he joined. And I had heard that there's a few private schools in the area. And so I had called them up, and Mrs. Rowley, who is the principal and was the principal then, was very welcoming and invited me to come and meet her, take a walk around the school. And I heard that there was a waiting list at that time. So I actually brought my child in when he was 9 months old, dressed him in a cute little pant and shirt so that he looked like a well dressed and brought up kid, even though he was just 9 months old. And the school, what really impressed me was, and I will never forget this, the child that was at the door, the child was just going out, but was very polite and said, "Oh, your visitors, here's the office," and took us to the office. And I had told my husband, even if like education is no different, which I believed it is better at a private school, um, the way the children behaved really impressed me from that first interaction. There were a couple of other private schools in the region, but one refused to let me come and observe the class. So I was very uncomfortable. That school has since long ago become like bankrupt and no longer in existence. And the other school at that time didn't have a elementary program. So then I met with Miss Rowley, and she explained the toddler program to me and let me observe the class with my husband briefly. And ever since then, I was very, very impressed with the whole establishment from age 2 to grade 8. And I had gone to a private school in Alberta. And so I was already interested in private education, whereas my husband, who's also a doctor, he had gone to public school in Nova Scotia. So he was less convinced of the benefits of private education over public education. But I already kind of, I guess, had a predisposition to think private education is better. And I have had no regrets with my decision. Well, he was a really he was actually a special needs kid. He still is a special needs kid because at that time when he was 9 months old and subsequently when he started, we didn't know he was hard of hearing. And it turned out to be an advantage because one of the things with the Wheatley School is that the class sizes were very small. So they ranged from anywhere from 10 to at max no more than 25 kids. So and that was with more than one teacher. So the ratio, they're very strict to their Montessori standards of whatever they're required to have student teacher ratio. And for a child that had special needs, that was perfect. So my child really blossomed in that school because he was able to do division by age 5 or 6. And there was activity that they had to do in CASA, and I'll never forget. You had to write the numbers from 1 to 1,000, and he was so motivated to be the first to complete the numbers from 1 to 1,000. And plus, we obviously, we're blessed with kids that are bright, but they fostered his abilities in math, for example. And now he's in honors computing science at Waterloo. So that early math exposure really, helped him along the way. Initially, like, to be honest, it took a little bit of adapting for the teacher to, he was hard of hearing. He had hearing aids. We found that out at age 3, so it wasn't right away. And he had something called an FM system, which is an auditory communication device that the teacher wears around his or her neck, and it communicates to the hearing aid so that the child can hear in a lot of background noise. And one of the teachers was less receptive to that, but then we were able to move him to a different classroom in the school, and that teacher was excellent. And I think she also had a special needs child herself, so she had that extra kind of personal experience with that, and that was a really good fit. So at that point they had 3 different CASA classes, which is the early years program in Montessori. And so Mrs. Frelly was willing to, like, it didn't really work, that particular fit with the first teacher, but then we found one that was a really good fit. And my son, over the years, he's extremely bright in English. He ended up winning awards in high school English, and even though he's in computer science, his minor area of study is English. So he was really, like, always, they had a club for, like, at that time Harry Potter was really big, so one of the teachers, had a Harry Potter club that he just lapped up. So the other thing that was really good is they had a lot of enrichment activities. So they would take them to, like, the Shaw Festival, because we live in Niagara, um, and unfortunately now everything is closed, but they also took them to Stratford if there was something at Stratford. They took them to the Scotiabank if there was performing arts there. They took them to, um, there was like a historic place for Indigenous Canadians out in Milton for longhouses. So they really enriched the curriculum. That is the actual, like, reading and writing curriculum with real lived experiences that bring it more to life for, especially for kids. So I really like that. And there was a lady called Mem Fox, and she wrote a book called Reading Magic, and she talked about the importance of experiential education as well. And they did even things like horseback riding, all, like, not just for, like, dramatic arts, but different, a range of activities. So to answer your question in a long way, it was really like an individualized attention. And you know for the things that the child needed help on, like hearing or special needs, also their academic talents as well. And I had 2 other children, the last one who's graduating right now, and they were not special needs in the same way, with a hearing limitation, but the school also worked with people from like speech therapy and occupational therapy to get supports for the other children that needed different supports. And they're all, like, the second one has got into the Richard Ivey School of Business with a combined program with uh, medical science, and he got advanced admission to that, and he got a entrance scholarship for the top 250 students with the highest marks. They both went to a Catholic school after. So I firmly believe that their foundation at Wheatley School was instrumental to their future success, and God willing, to their continued success. Well, I've been asking for a long time for a high school, but I mean, that's a resource constraint. Um, I think it's come a long way in diversity. When my kids went, the first child, 18 years ago, he's 20 now. There, Niagara was much more homogeneous in terms of the, like, ethnic and demographic distribution of the population here. So I think one thing that Miss Varelli has improved on is her openness to, accommodating, people's special days, celebrating them within the school so that they can be proud of, okay, I don't celebrate Christmas, but I celebrate, in our instance, Eid. and allowing the children to bring more of their a worldview. And I think the fact that they have international baccalaureate also improved that, in terms of widening the focus, because international baccalaureate, by the virtue even of the name, you can tell it's not just, a centric, like one centric curriculum. They want a more of a worldview. Well, I was pretty naive way back then in terms of what I knew, like about private education in Ontario, because I'm from Alberta originally. But I guess it's the breadth of activities. I guess I thought it would be the private school I went to is one of the top private schools in Alberta, and it's one of the top schools in the Fraser Report. Um, and they didn't have a lot of extracurriculars, so I wasn't expecting all these enrichment. So I think that was a surprise that they had all that enrichment, because they also had things like every Friday for a month, the kids would go out on Friday afternoon skating at the arena. They would have like a special 3 or 4 days at a camp called Camp Mulmer, or there's another camp, Camp Wetaskiwin, and Camp Candelore. So there was a lot of these nice, almost like a retreat that would build camaraderie and closeness between the kids. So that was something that I didn't expect, and that was nice. Well, I think they have like an oath, a Wheatley School oath that they introduced, not right away, but and they also had a weekly assembly before COVID. Um, I think that their values were really decency, like being a good human being. And Mrs. Relly would always promote, go out and do something kind to someone today, like about giving. So, and it actually goes back to my earlier comment about that child greeting me so politely, and my husband so politely with coming with a 9-month-old baby, basically. Um, that the children, I'm not saying everybody is perfect at the school. Of course, every school has issues, and every school has problem children and discipline issues and, whatever. But the children are almost invariably well behaved. Um, they don't have, there's like, they have a lot of talks about anti-bullying. They had my youngest son, who's in grade 8 now. He said many times they had Native Canadians coming and talking about residential schools, even before it was like horribly in the news as it is today with the discovery of those bodies. But they were always sensitizing them to think about others, to make, and she always says, make the world a better place. I might be paraphrasing it, but one thing you could ask her is about ask her to give you the weekly school oath. Because that sums up, I guess, what the values they wanted to inculcate in these children. So for me, it would be a good human being first, be a good caretaker of the environment, be a good citizen, like a global citizen, and excel to whatever your potential, uh, academic potential is. Excel in that. Um, uh, but it was always about being a good person first. Well, I think one of the things is they all value education. So many of the people are professional families, but there's also people who are business people. There are a lot of, you know, mothers who work, as homemakers. That's their primary thing, being a mother. So I would say it's quite a diverse group of individuals, and I think people tend to kind of find people that are, you know, share some of the similarities, but also like, you know, my son, I have three sons, so I'm, you know, more friendly with the mothers that have sons. Not that there's anything problematic with the mothers of daughters, but it's just that you end up mixing with I guess what the kids get drawn to. But I think there's also a sense of community, like when she does fundraising for, you know, this school tries to get behind fundraising. So they've raised like playground equipment money. They've raised money for, you know, sports equipment. They've raised money for like planting some trees. So I guess there's a feeling that we should improve the school for the sake of everyone. So kind of maybe being united for a common purpose.
Yeah.
Um, One of the things, I mean, I'm just thinking about thing that might be an idea to improve is also to maybe have more of like a meditation room or a prayer room, because there is a lot of diversity of ethnic groups and religions. And I think originally the population of Niagara was mainly like a large percentage was Italian Catholic. But I think having like a multi faith room would be another idea. But then, of course, there's also space constraints.
Yeah,
Uh,
that would be really cool.
yeah,
Just a place to go. Yeah.
yeah, and you don't have to have a faith, but
Yeah.
it's just like more of like a meditation or quiet room to just take a break. The other thing you also had mentioned earlier was what is something surprising is they had a really good art show. So every year, all the kids' arts, they'd have it all mounted in the gym, and you'd go around and look at all the different um, art artworks. So that was the other thing I liked about the school. In my private school, it was mainly um, reading, writing, and arithmetic, like the three R's. Whereas here they have music, they have drama. Oh, and then the other thing is art. So at the end of the year, again, everything before COVID, like they had an amazing musical every year. So all of those fine arts people would be able to bring their talent. So they'd have auditions. So they've done like Joseph and the Technicolor Dreamcoat. They've done Annie. They've done Sound of Music. So it's just quite a small school of under 250 kids, and the quality of these productions was quite amazing. They did The Lion King. Um, they did Beauty and the Beast. So that was, you know, the quality. They're not high school; it's like a junior school. Um, I think that was quite a surprising thing too, and also that they would even get from the littlest kids who would just be in the choir to the grade eights who would be the lead actors and actresses. They would kind of, you know, be able to bring everyone in as a community. They had this every year they had a speech competition, and they would it would be a big highlight to get to go to the gym. That means that you made it past your classroom and you were like one or two finalists that got to go to the gym to give their speech. So I think they really enjoyed. They had all the diversity of topics, you know, on the speeches. But then they used to have things like the Optimus Club or the Kiwanis Club that would have a regional speech competition. So once at one point we thought it was only the kids that got to go to the gym that could compete in these regional competitions, but we found out on our own that any kid could go to these competitions. So I think that they were very excited to go to the next level and win at some a lot of the kids, not just my kids, but one at the local or regional levels. So I think that would be one of their highlights. And I know they really from um, their like I guess personal growth, they really loved the camps in terms of the one camp Candelore. They used to go in winter because there was a teacher called Mr. Hamilton who was a really outdoorsy person, and they would love going like snowshoeing, cross-country skiing. I don't know what else they did in winter there, but I go like, I don't really want to go to a winter camp, but they seem to love it, to go to this winter camp. Um, and they also love the trips. Like they'd have an end of the year trip, which would be for the upper years, so grade 5 to 8. So they would go to the places where Quebec City, Montreal, Ottawa, and Sudbury. And so that was a big highlight. Unfortunately, the last 2 years they haven't been able to do that because of COVID. But for them, I bet if I ran up and asked them, they would say the trips. Every school has great teachers and not so great teachers. But over the years, like the core teachers that have been there are very caring, very interested in the child's success, and very interested in, as I said, enriching whatever that kid's, interest or talents are. So they've been about like the math teacher, who's also the gym teacher I mentioned earlier. He's been there all the way through. Another math teacher's been all the way through. An English teacher's been all the way through, and she's recently become more guidance. Some of the early years teachers have been all the way through, like we're talking like 10 to 20 years. Some of these teachers have been there. Some of them, of course, have retired over the years. And I think the caring teachers make a difference to the kids. So I think, to answer your question, I think some of the things that the kids would say they liked are some of the teachers particularly. They make a global caring citizen that is not just inwardly focused on, what he or she can get out of the world, but more what, like John F. Kennedy said, what, ask not what my country can do for you, but what can you do for your country, kind of thing. So, and I really am glad that before it was just a Montessori school. Sorry, I shouldn't just say just a Montessori school. It was a Montessori school till grade 4, but I think the IB really enriched it to make it 2 different programs, but complementary programs. So I would tell a parent that not only will you get a Montessori education to grade 4, but then you will also be able to get from 5 to 8 an international baccalaureate education. And I was an international baccalaureate high school student from Edmonton. So I did the senior international baccalaureate program, and I knew what the quality of that program and the enrichment it brought. So it's kind of an external kind of set of expectations and standards. So it acts as a check on the school too, that is the school meeting certain curricular expectations. So I would say that is the first point would be the global citizen. The second point would be the standards of education are very good. And it's not just like, oh, they make up their own standards of education, but of course they also meet the Ontario standards of education. Um, and the third thing would be the community. I guess that, like my kids, the oldest one is 20 years old. He's still friends with several of the kids that he met at Wheatley School. Some of them he doesn't even go to university with them anymore, but that early bonding or friendships, some of them went to the same high school, some of them didn't. He's still close to those kids. The second child, I think the sense of community that they learn carries into high school. So they also are, even though he didn't have the same kids going to high school with him, I think that feeling of a community, it's like a very caring and I guess a stable community. Well, I always recommend this school to new people that I meet. Uh, I think I would say investigate your options in the community. If you're looking for private education, I'd say consider Wheatley School, and there's only one other real private school in the region that is the same kind of full throughout to grade 8. But there's some other ones that are just like up to a certain level. But I'd say make sure you, like I guess, do more research before you go out. So I didn't actually study a lot of research before. So I would look at, like, I didn't even know about your magazine, for example, until later. But I think also that was because 20 years ago there was less internet, and people still depended on like newspapers or word of mouth. And now, you want to find out about something, you just go online. So I would say do your research and talk to, like, I didn't actually talk to parents who went there. So they used to have an open house again before COVID where you could go and meet the teachers. And I think they would have parent representatives from the parent guild. But I would probably have, in retrospect, have asked Mrs. Relly, like, could you give me 3 references for your school of different levels, like the early years, middle years, and the high school years? Not the high school years, the middle, like they call it, early years, lower elementary and upper elementary. I would have asked maybe for 3 references, which I didn't. But I got, and I would also say, if the school doesn't let you come and watch, like, I'm kind of probably a very concerned or protective parent because I'm a psychiatrist, and I see a lot of negatives that happen to kids from bullying or abuse or all these negatives. So when the school said, no, I can't, you can't come and watch, that other school said, no, you can't come and watch a class, you might say, like, why? What do you have to hide? So I would say, if to a parent looking back, I'd say if the school is welcoming you anytime, like obviously with an appointment, when there's kids there and you can come and see, are the kids happy? Are the kids well behaved? How are the teachers talking to the kids? Not just when, that you're sitting at the back of the class and, evaluating them, but, when you're not watching them in the field, are they treating the kids nicely? I think that's a test of the school. And then the other thing is, I also saw the outcomes of the kids. So my husband and I had looked at the outcomes from another private school here, and we didn't think that the outcomes of those kids, which it goes up to high school, were really any better than public school or Catholic school outcomes. So that's why we didn't choose to send our children for 9, 10, 11, 12 to a private school, because we didn't think what's available here really enrich their success or increase their success. So I'd say, okay, the kids that graduate from Wheatley, where are they ending up? Ask Mrs. Brelly or the principal, where are those kids now today? What are they doing with their lives?
For more information about this school, you can visit their profile at ourkids.net.